Welcome, adventurers and fellow world builders. My name is Yadro, and this is Yadro Gaming. We just finished up our 5th session, and this was an opportunity for the party to finally relax a little bit, do their de-stressors, go on a bit of a shopping fashion trip, and then go to a theater show to spice things up a little bit in the campaign, and to get a chance to kind of engage in the role-playing aspect quite a bit more, because we've been kind of combat heavy. So to start this all off, the party went up to Brellwood with a shipment to try to grab some lumber from up there, from the ruins of Brellwood, and bring it back down to the Crossroads to get a nice little payday. Along the way, they ran into that Drider on top of the building, Darla, who forced them into a Fey pact in exchange for their lives to bring other male villagers up there to repopulate her ruins. The party agreed to that reluctantly, brought the shipment back to the Crossroads, and got paid. All of them had suffered various levels of stress. They needed a chance to get rid of that stress during this downtime in the Crossroads. So all of them engaged in their different activities, whether that was gambling, flagellation, pampering, all the good things that the players wanted to do that gave a little bit more depth to their characters. So they had a chance to finally do that. They had a bunch of opportunities to have one-on-ones with the characters, kind of plan for things for the future. And at the end of the day, they decided that they wanted to look into the Darty disappearance a little bit. And that's kind of like the main plot point of the story so far. So they had a chance to do a little investigation of that, talk to Pepper, who owns the apothecary, who's the girlfriend of Darty before his disappearance. So all of that kind of wound up together where they were having fun, they were role-playing, they were using the homebrew stress mechanic that I talked about in the previous video, and they had a chance to just kind of relax a little bit. Now, some players had a really, really good time with that. Some people got a little bit antsy by the end of the session, so I had a little bit plan in there to spice things up a little bit. So they decided that they wanted to go to the theater that night just to unwind a little bit and also to get an eye on the Caymans and try to steal a fancy bottle of wine from them that they think was the root cause of all of the issues with Darty Cayman to begin with. So to do that, they needed to get fancy. So they all went on a shopping trip. They went to a local fabric shop that was nearby the theater, and they decided to get costumes made, essentially. Really, really fancy clothes. So half of the party could be up in the fancy seats, half of it could be in like the poor seats on the lower level, and 9 was going to do a little bit of infiltration in the bottom of the theater so they could try to get closer to Annie Cayman, who runs the theater, and try to snag one of those bottles of wine. So during this whole process, everyone was having fun, picking out their outfits, coming up with their designs, just having like an absolute blast, and it was great to see them all roleplay off one another and just kind of change up their looks and what they decided their characters would wear for the situation. So at the end of the night, all of them were ready to go. They made it into the theater and started to watch a show. Everything was going fine until intermission, when 9 was working his way to the bottom of the stage. He ended up making it into this back private chamber of the Caymans, and then everything kind of went sideways as something crashed through the side of the theater. And that something was that large bat creature, the man bat, or bat man, if you will, from the previous session that 9 had met. Earlier that morning, one of the de-stressors that 9 has is to do lucidity. It's this drug that I made, and you can see it in a previous video when I talk about the homebrew mechanic. But ultimately, it makes you kind of relive some visions that you've had, but it gives you dreamless sleep, which is what he really wants because he's tormented by his past. So in doing that, that night, as he slept, he was dreamless, but the last thing on his mind was going to see that creature in the mill. So his body started to react to that and to replay it. So he ended up leaving in the middle of the night and going to the mill, and it was trying to get back inside. Thankfully, he was rooming with Darren, who decided to go with him and just follow him and see what he was doing. And as he was trying to crawl in there through the mill window to get to the inside and possibly his death, Darren stopped him and pulled him back and ended up like dragging him back to the hotel to put him back to sleep for the night. Neither of them in character decided to board up that window. So there was daylight inside of there coming from this orb in the ceiling, but the window was left open as they had pried it off and they had failed to replace it. So they went back to the hotel. They talked about that the next day, and everything was fine. At least they thought. So now fast forward to the theater. Man-Bat comes crushing through the doors, is engaged by several of the Caymans who Benny, Frankie, and Annie were up in the special box, and it turned out that they were all rather capable fighters as they started to engage this thing and discussed about trapping them. Party, not having armor on, not really having any of their weapons, decided to jump down there and engage with the creature, at least to force it out into the streets. Darren leapt to the front because there was a guy in the audience that he was interested in. He was there with his daughter watching the show, so Darren put himself in harm's way to protect this mystery man that he had met at the brothel earlier in the day. A potential love interest in the future, but he never actually got his name or got to see him perform, so it's kind of a cat and mouse for them. So Darren jumps down there, gets in the way. Mongo rushes into the fray as well because he's on the bottom level, and now they're engaged with this vampire man-bat, something or other, that is grabbing them, biting them, and drags Darren down the side of the building as several of the Caymans and the rest of the party gets chased. So everything has just been really ratcheted up at this point. The fight spills into the street, and as they get a couple hits on him, they realize that it's recovering like 20 health per round. This is a very formidable creature. He's hitting them hard, and they are not well equipped for this. Thankfully, they got the Caymans there helping them rush them out towards the creature, but it flees into the night, and the party decides not to give chase because they're not in a good place to handle it. So they talk with the Caymans. The Caymans are like, we don't think we're not giving you a reward for this. It's the right thing to do. We need to hunt that thing down and take care of it. And the party's like, oh yeah, like we'll do that. Like you're right. We'll talk about anything else afterwards. Like we're Taggans, like we're employed by your company. We're going to help. So the next morning, after everyone's had a long rest, everyone's feeling recharged, they went to the message board at the Crossroads Inc., where Johnny Cayman is. And they saw on the board that one of the trips on there was to lead to Tellerant with a delivery up there, and another one was headed towards Dur to deliver a shipment up there. They know that the other two sisters, Charla and Carla, one is in Tellerant and one is in Dur. Mongo decided he wasn't exactly ready to go back to Dur yet. Nine was itching to get back to Tellerant because he wanted to try to find his friend Gil. So the party decided, let's go to Tellerant, let's take this job, deliver the shipment there, and then see what we can do on the way. Maybe hit up Ambermere along the path, and we'll see what's kind of shaking in that neck of the woods. So the party decides to just get ready. They got their payment, and they just headed out of town. They did not engage with the Caymans outside of that. They did not chase down the man-bat, and they just kind of left the Crossroads as it is. I don't even think they checked in with the marshal, now that I'm thinking about it, when they promised him that they would give him any interesting information that they found. So kind of an interesting turn of events that they said, oh yeah, we're definitely going to help you, that's a good idea, and they bailed town. We'll see if that comes back into play later on. So the party packed up, they headed with the shipment out of town, and made their way to Ambermere. On the outsides of Ambermere, when you are on a shipment from the Taggans, you're not actually allowed to pass through the town, but they have like barns or areas that you can rest outside of town that just caters to the Taggans. They have like a warm place to sleep, and everything was fine. Along the way, they were being followed by these strange crows, these birds that would just follow them and just seem to be watching them. Made them a little bit uneasy. When they made it into town, one of the guards told them as they were like ushering the shipment into the barn, like, yeah, we've had problems with these crows. We can't get things planted, and it's still springtime. It's really important that we get into the ground, but these crows are really messing with us. If you guys could help us, that'd be phenomenal. So the party was like, yeah, sure, like we're gonna definitely do that. So as they were packing up for the night, they were just kind of like chilling in the barn, hanging out, role playing a little bit. Mongo decided to like go to one of these crows and looked at it, and like was able to use a dexterity check to actually grab one and just like kind of squeeze it, and it just went poof, and it shocked him like electricity. So that made all the other crows kind of angry, and they all started to gather on top of the barn. They were trying to get to the party. They were trying to break through and peck through the walls, and all the while they were releasing this static electricity, these like lightning crows or whatever it is that they were, storm crows. So the party's kind of getting a little bit antsy about this because they're in a barn that's very dry and very old, and there's a bunch of straw packed up in there along with their bedding, their shipment that they're bringing through, their cart, their horses, pretty much everything that they needed was in there, and now they're being accosted by hundreds, if not thousands, of these crows. And that is where we left off the session. So that was my big cliffhanger. The party was trying to decide what to do. I think they kind of ended up fighting over whether or not Shay was going to use her little construct to turn it into a flamethrower, and just open the doors and just blow fire at all of them and just roast all of these storm crows. So some people thought that was a great idea. Some people hated it. And I was trying to mediate that of like, hey, like we'll do some rolls for it, see how well it works. There's a lot of flammable stuff in here, but I'm sure that it could all be okay. I mean, that's part of the fun of the game. So they had a whole week to think about that before we jumped into session 6. But that's kind of the wrap up for session 5. I hope you enjoyed it. We learned a little bit about what the party was into fashion-wise. They got to see what like high society lived like. They did get a chance to examine some of the wine, and they snagged a bottle and dropped that off with Pepper so she could analyze it. And then they got out of there and chased the man-bat, which they learned a little bit about its combat strategies. So I planted a lot of seeds for the future while giving them about half of the session, if not 3/4 of it, to kind of recharge their batteries and role play and just do kind of some fun, silly stuff. And then get a chance to fight a little bit and get out of town and end on a cliffhanger. So I try to throw a lot of different things at them, and I think they all had a lot of fun with this one. And I'm really excited to see where they go for the rest of the campaign. I hope you stick around and find out. I'll see you in a future episode. And remember, why be a player when you can be a god?